A very good afternoon to all of you present over here for this session on compensation and reward management. My dear friends, as we have already discussed the basic introduction of compensation and reward management and the detailed components of this compensation, we have understood that this compensation management is one of the most important verticals of human resource management, not only to attract the manpower for the organizations, but also to motivate them, to retain them on a long run, to achieve the competitive advantage of that organization. So, in continuation, those today in this session, we are going to discuss the various theories related to these compensations which have been developed in due course of time and the economic issues that are related to the compensation practices, what we need to consider for making this compensation and benefit administration more effective. So we need to think of all of those theories into two categories. We'll discuss these theories in terms of the economic aspects, economic issues associated with this compensation, and the behavioral issues associated with the compensation. We are going to discuss it in detail. But one thing I'd like to tell you from the beginning is that whenever we are discussing these theories or the issues related to this compensation, all of these are contextual in nature. So all of these theories have been developed in certain reference to a time frame, a particular reference to a time frame, or a particular reference to a situation. So what we need to understand is that even if we are going to discuss all of those theories to have a detailed analysis of these compensation practices, but the theories may or may not have its relevance at the present time. So some of the components of these theories may be relevant, some other things might not be relevant in a sense. Those components have not been appropriate considering the present day's situations or contexts. So we're going to start it with certain economic aspects of these theories. What I'd say, like the first thing is we will discuss this subsistence theory. Now, the subsistence theory is based on the concept of Adam Smith, and it was propounded by David Ricardo. Now, one of the fundamental aspects of this compensation administration, which is based on the concept of the Adam Smith, what it says, the law of diminishing returns, which are applicable to the industries also, and there's a rapid rise in population with this Malthusian law of population says. Besides this, non-interference of the state are some of the concepts based on which the subsistence theory was developed, propounded by David Ricardo. The basic assumption of this subsistence theory is that on a long run, the wages or salaries are deemed to be at the subsistence level. That means what? Now, if I do have two such kind of situations where I'm making a payment to the workers or the employees at a much higher rate than that of the subsistence level. Subsistence level says you must pay that much to the workers which will enable them to subsist. So at least you need to think of providing them that much amount of compensation which will enable them to fulfill their bare essentials of life, including the maintenance of their health, as an education, etc. etc. So I must pay that much to the workers whereby they will be able to subsist. That's the basic concept. Now, what happens if I do pay at a much higher rate than that of the subsistence level? The Malthusian law of population says that if workers will be paid at a much higher rate, then they will tend to have more and more offsprings. That means what? Now, if I to say the industrial activities remaining same, the compensation will be a part of the demand and supply of the laborers. Yeah. So if the workers are paid at a much higher rate and they do have the tendency of producing more and more offsprings, that means the available human resources in the society to serve those organizations will be more. And that will lead to a situation where the supply of labor forces will be more, and gradually it will have an impact on the compensation aspects to lower the compensation once again to the subsistence level. Similarly, if I do pay at a much lower rate than that of the subsistence level, what will be the impact? The impact is there will be malnutrition problems, there will be starvation deaths, which will ultimately lower the efficiency of the workers or decrease the population of the society. That means the human resources available to serve those organizations will be less, which will lead to a demand of the human resources, and ultimately the price of these labor forces or the compensations that we are going to give to these labor forces will increase to the subsistence level. So, irrespective of the situations, on a long run, wages and salaries will tend to be at the subsistence level. Whether we pay more, right? So the migration of the workers to those industries will be more, and that will lead us to once again to lower the compensation to the subsistence level. If we pay less, then the number of workers available for the industries will be less, which will increase the demand of the workers, increasing to a compensation, and it will once again come to the subsistence level. Right? So, on a long run, the workers are paid at a subsistence level to create that balance. So, this is one of the fundamental concepts of the compensation based on Adam Smith. What it says that workers should be paid at least at the minimum level, which will enable them to subsist without perpetuating their race, without an increase or decrease in their race. That is how it will come out. Now, the next concept is the surplus value theory. Surplus value theory was propounded by Karl Marx. No, Karl Marx, Marxism concept. So it is this theory is particularly it's quite same as that of the subsistence theory, but the application of this theory is more or less for the capitalistic structure of the economy, where we say that there's a distinguished class of participants to the industrial relationship system. We talk of the laborers at one side or workers at the one side, and the owners or the employers at the other side. Now, what the basic concept Karl Marx had given is how these workers are exploited by the owners, or so as to say the entrepreneurs. Now, the basic thing, same as substitution theory, but here the entrepreneurs or the owners, they knowingly create an excess of demand of the supply of labor forces. That means what? The workers, they do not get the full compensation for the time they do spend at the job. The supply of labor forces are in excess to its demand. So when this is a situation which is created purposefully to exploit these labor forces to an extent. Now, the rate of exploitation is equivalent or is almost equal to the ratio of the surplus labor forces to the demand labor forces or the necessary labor itself. So more will be the surplus of labor forces as against the demand, the more will be the rate of exploitation. The less the surplus of labor forces will be, the less will be the rate of exploitation. So anyhow, because of these differences that you do come out with, between these entrepreneurs and the laborers, the exploitation of labor forces to happen. So, on a long run, we need to think of maintaining or creating that balance in terms of the supply and demand of labor forces, which will make the organization to accomplish its objectives by utilizing the labor forces, human resources to an optimal way. We do come out with another one important theory, what we call it as wage fund theory. Wage fund theory was again based on the concept of Adam Smith, but further propounded by J.S. Mill. Now, again, this is a theory which is more relevant to the capitalistic structure of the economy. What it says that wages are to be paid out of a predetermined fund. What do we call it as a wage fund? Predetermined fund. So, what this capitalistic structure of the economy or capitalistic entrepreneurs do come out with? Before the processing of the entire process, compensation administration, so they keep a fixed amount of money for the purpose of payment towards the labor forces. The amount is fixed. Now, what are the factors that determine the level of wages and salaries for the workers? Now, first is that what is the strength of that particular fund, wage fund that we do refer to? So, if the strength of the wage fund is huge, workers can be paid at a better wage rate. If the strength of that wage fund is poor, then the workers will be definitely paid at a lower rate. So, to what extent the wage fund is been taken into consideration, that is one of the determinant of the wages and salaries. Now, beyond that, again, we are thinking of the demand and supply of laborers, because the wage fund is kept constant. So, wage fund is, you know, related to the number of employees available to serve the industry. So it is inversely proportional to the labor forces, workforces, right? So wages will be inversely proportional to the labor forces. Means the more and more workers available to serve the industry, so that wage fund will be divided with those number of workers. So leading towards a lesser rate of wages or a lesser rate of salaries for the workers in the long run. Similarly, if the number of availability of these labor forces will be less, the same wage fund will be divided with less number of workers, which will make the workers to earn a good amount of wage, or the wage rate will be higher. So everything is now related to the proportion between this population and the capital available. It is, we say that no, wages are inversely proportional to the people, number of human resources available, because assuming that the capital which is being kept constant as a wage fund, right, has to be distributed among people. Right? So this is the theory which still may have its relevance in some of the traditional like processes where they do follow this capitalistic structure. But again, this has been criticized with certain other points, like how can we constitute a wage fund before the application of this compensation or practices of the organization? How can we create that wage fund? And predetermined wage fund, wherefrom we will have that capital for distribution of these wages and salaries to the workers. Strength of that wage fund is again a question mark. So all of these are the points what criticized this wage fund theory. Still, some of the organizations will see that it is still like smaller, not on a large scale, but it is being practiced at the present time also. But to think of the next theory is is called as the bargaining theory proposed by John Davidson. The theory says that wages are determined by the relative bargaining power of the participants to the IS system. As if we have understood in some of our previous classes that unorganized sectors pay lesser amount than the organized sector. The reason is that organized sectors do have organized unions, and mostly the wages and salaries are determined by the bargaining strength or the bargaining power of the unions in the organization. And what is the tool that we use? The tool is collective bargaining process. Sometimes they also go for the different forums of workers' participation in management, but most of the time through this collective bargaining process, where they do finalize and settle the rules and regulations of the workplace, the terms and conditions of service, the terms and conditions of labor. So all of these includes the wages and salaries also. And through the process of collective bargaining or the different forums of this workers' participation in management, yeah, may have this unit councils, plant councils, sub councils, which may not be directly related to the fixation of these wages and salaries, but some of the aspects can also be taken into consideration in this forum itself. Now, what would happens? What are the process? Process is always the bargaining takes place between two extreme ends. One is a higher point, right, and one is a lower point. Of course, when we do talk of that higher point or lower point as initial offer points. Now, these wages and salaries or any related aspects, these wages and salaries like bonus or incentives, are also fixed through this collective bargaining process, where in the process of bargaining, the upper limit is normally being taken by the unions and the lower limit is being taken by the management. So, unless and until these two limits do interfere with one another, bargainings cannot be possible. So, through proposals and counter proposals, right, they do lower their offers and they come to a point, what we call it as a target point, or when they do come to a point as a resistance point. And unless and until the resistance points of the parties do intersect with one another and a bargaining zone is created, the settlement cannot be possible. So, any kind of settlement that is possible in that bargaining zone. Now, what determines the effectiveness of this bargaining process? The relevant strength of the unions or the employers, or the bargaining power of the unions and the employers, right? So if the bargaining power of the workers or the union will be more, they will draw the benefit more towards them. And if the bargaining power of the employer will be more, then the benefit will be drawn more towards the employers. So again, this is based on the behavior of the labor market, the demand and supply of laborers. So mostly, as if we have understood that, supply of labor forces are more, will lead them to have lower pay packages, lower wage rates. If the demand of the workers will be more, will lead themselves to a higher wage rate. Right? So that gives the opportunity to both these unions and the employees to fix and revise this compensation related aspects or any other related things, right? So compensation practices are more or less being finalized through this process of collective bargaining and is completely based on the bargaining power of the parties in the system itself. So this is one of the relevant concepts at the present time where we understand that even if there are no government as a regulatory authority is there to regulate or to fix and revise the compensation related aspects, but still more aspects of these compensations are finalized through the process of bipartite negotiation, through the process of this collective bargaining, right? And that is the reason why we understand that the present time mostly do fix up these wages and salaries through this bargaining process, otherwise bargaining change process. Now the determinants are like the strength of the union, to what extent the union is organized, to what extent the union has its memberships in the organization, and how these unions do operate in the organization. I mean to say whether they are actively involved in the process or not. Right? So these unions do play a very significant role in carrying out the entire process of collective bargaining and fixing of the wage rates for the workers. We to come out with one of the recent concepts of this compensation developed by Phillips and Wickstead and John Bett Clark, right? What it says the marginal productivity theory. It says that no one in these organizations, including the workers, right, they should be paid unless and until they do contribute. In a simpler sense, if I do explain this theory, I'll say that you are paid because of your contributions. You will not be provided with the minimum basics. It will not contribute towards the organization. So, made to the workers, made to the employees, they earn their own salaries. They earn their own salaries. But how it is determined? You say that the wages are determined only by the marginal contribution made by the worker to the organization. What is that marginal contribution? When we talk of the contribution, what is expected from the workers as fixed up by the organization through certain scientific methods such as time study, motion study, etc., etc. So the minimum level of duties and responsibilities are fixed for the employees, and that will lead the workers to contribute towards the organization. And these workers will be taken as being economically worthy for the organizations to hire them. And what will happen if the workers do not contribute at the marginal level? Then what will happen? It will lead to lower productivity. It will lead to lesser output of the workers, and the employers or the owners may stop hiring those workers on a long run. So what we need to understand is that on the basis of the marginal contribution to the product, to the process of production, these workers are paid. Workers are paid on the basis of that. So the margin, like here you can see a recent example of that, as you can think. The way the sales executives are given a target, maybe you'll see same profile in coming classes. We'll see nowadays we are talking of broadening the pay bands. What we in a common language we call it as a broadbanding, widening the pay bands. So what is the factor that determines the workers or the executives to be paid differently even if they are in the same level of hierarchy? What are the factors? What we need to understand? Why does it happen that one person being there as an assistant manager sales gets a salary of 25,000 a month, with the other person is getting 45,000 a month. Is it because of the differences that you need to come out with related to the job, to the organization? No, may not. Is it related to the individuals? Yes, how the individual is given that target, how the individual to contribute in terms of its output to the organization. So all of those things are the factors that you need to take into consideration for fixing up the wages. So organizations now it is they do say that making a payment is not an issue. You can take as much as you can, but in return, what you are contributing towards the organization is what that matters. So issues are not related to the jobs, but related to the individuals who are performing that particular job. So unless and until they to perform the minimum as expected, will not be paid with the related wages and salaries, or on a long term the organization may sack them out. You not need those kind of people who are not contributing towards the organization. Right? So that is what we need to understand, that workers are paid because of their contributions. Workers are paid on the basis of the marginal contribution they do make towards the organization. These are the things that you need to talk of when we talk of this marginal productivity theory, and as developed by Alfred Marshall, demand and supply theory. So the most important aspect facilitates the fixation of these wages and salaries is the demand and the supply. It is affecting the entire workplace to a large extent. But the thing is that what creates a demand among these labor forces? The demand for products, factors of production, the labels of technological progress. All of these are the things what is making an impact to raise the demand of laborers. We will see it in the next theory in detail, like how this demand and supply will be related to that only. And supply of laborers, we have understood that the total number of employees required to deal with the organization, job roles, is what we call it as a supply. And beyond that also, the supply function is also determined by the efficiency of the workers, by the time that the workers do provide to the organization. However, we had a detailed discussion on this demand and supply, right? So the demand of the workers will lead them to have more wages. When the supply of the workers is more, the workers will tend to have a lower wage. That is how we need to understand. And we will talk of the purchasing power theory as developed by Lord Keynes. Right? Assumption says that worker, like this wages and salaries, whatever is being paid, that is not only adding a cost to the cost of production, but this is also the income opportunity given to the workers. Now, what will happen if these wages will be more? If the wage rate will be more, then the workers will tend to go for more purchases. So the purchasing power of the workers will increase. And when the purchasing power of the workers will increase, there will be an aggregate demand of the goods and services, which will ultimately lead to a higher level of production. Right? So on a long run, if we'll say that the workers' purchasing powers are increased, that will lead us to have more output of the workers. Similarly, if the workers' purchasing power will be low, then what will happen? Now, like the kind of demand they do have for their bare essentials, that will not be fulfilled. So the aggregate demand of the workers in terms of the product, service, or any kind of deliveries, that will go down. Now, if that goes down, then the impact will be on the output itself. There will be less amount of products and services which are delivered. So ultimately making an impact on the efficiency of the workers. So these are the economic aspects, issues related to the concept. As we understand that most of these theories that we have discussed, may it be the subsistence theory, may it be the surplus value theory, wage fund theory, right? And we to talk of the modern aspects like bargaining, marginal productivity, all of those theories do have its own importance. Okay? Do have one more theory like residual employment theory. What it says that workers are paid as a residue of the amount left after making the payment towards the factors of production. We do have land and building, maybe the rent. We do have the capital invested, maybe the profit sharing scheme. So after taking all those, whatever is left out, that is being taken as a payment to the workers as wage and salaries. So residual employment theory says workers are paid out of a residue after making all the payments. Whatever is left out, that is being paid to the workers. Right? Now, we have understood the basic aspects of these economic theories, but more or less, as we discussed it in some of our previous classes, that this compensation administration is most important in shaping up the attitude of the workers, in defining the level of commitment, in making the workers feel like owners of the organization. So, some or other, we need to understand that these compensation practices are related to the behavioral aspects of the workers, behavioral aspects of the labor forces, right? So we need to understand the basic content of this compensation related motivational factors, right? Content theories and process theories, as we define it in terms of certain theoretical perspectives, right? What we need to understand is that in terms of content theories, taken only three, like hierarchy of needs as proposed by Maslow, Abraham Maslow. We're talking of Alderfer's ERG model, or maybe the two-factor theory as defined by the Herzberg. These are the things what we need to understand, because these are the factors like what it makes an impact on the compensation and ultimately making an impact on the productivity of the workers. Right? So, able to talk of this hierarchy of needs as proposed by Maslow says that, coming out with an assumption that human wants are unlimited. One want is satisfied, then the other emerges. Okay? So he classified all the requirements of the people into two categories. One is lower order needs, one is higher order needs. And they say that these employees, the workers, do move from satisfying their lower order needs first, then they do go for higher order needs. Lower order needs such as we do talk of fulfilling all of our physiological requirements, yeah? The bare essentials of life. And beyond that, we need to talk of maintaining or preserving our health. We need to talk of maintaining and preserving our efficiency. So we're talking of fulfilling our safety needs, which is there to protect us during the time of hazards, unemployment situations. So there would be safety requirements, and beyond that, there will be societal requirements, social requirements, maybe family requirements. So when these workers do fulfill their physiological requirements, needs, they do go for satisfying their safety needs. They like to protect them in the unforeseen days of their life. May it be an accident where they lose their employability, maybe temporarily disabled, or maybe permanently disabled, maybe unemployed to a large extent. Who do take care of them? That's the reason they do invest on certain safety aspects. Right? May it be their old age, who will take care of them? Right? So safety requirements are the requirements as taken by the workers as one of the most important aspects that will preserve their health and efficiency. Right? We are talking of social requirements. Now, all of us, we are social animals, so we cannot live without a society. But whenever we are there in a society, what we need to understand is that we do have our own social obligations. To what extent, being there in a civilized society, I am involved with other people, right? Means what? Need to belong to others is what the requirement is. May it begin from a family where all the employees or all the members are, you know, relating themselves, belonging themselves to other members. Similarly, in an organizational setup, if you see that people do need to maintain a relationship, maybe as defined by the organization structure. Factors which do affect is, unity of command, chain of command, right? The process of centralization, decentralization, delegation, all of those factors to define the way the people to maintain their relationships at the place of work, right? But if I do think of these three, the physiological, safety, and social requirements, but these three requirements can be fulfilled directly through money. We need money to fulfill the requirements, physiological, safety, social. But beyond that, we need to talk of certain higher order needs also. Higher order needs includes self-esteem and self-actualization. The esteem needs are like being there to be respected in the society, in the organization. So, and actualization is what? When I understand the basic purpose of my life and the way I do take my life into account. So that is actualization requirements, right? Now, if people are motivated by this, esteem or actualization requirements, these requirements do not need money to fulfill themselves. These requirements requires additional benefits to fulfill their requirements, such as people who are motivated by their esteem needs. Esteem needs, as I said, we you need to be respected in the society, feel like respected in the society, right? So, what can make you to have that respect? Money, of course, is one of the most important aspects, but what you need to understand is that money is not everything. What is required is how I do administer the benefits along with the money so that I'll be able to retain my people. And mostly the higher order needs require more focus on benefit administration so that the people can be motivated. Like you can think of the employee recognition programs, employee of the month award, dinner with the boss concept, or any kind of social recognition will make the employees motivated. So the concept is that you need to understand what drives the behavior of the people, and you need to define the compensation plan according to that only. I'm not telling that these compensation plans will be individualized. No, that cannot be possible. But these compensation plans, if understood properly, can be a source of motivation for the workers. Right? Similarly, we do talk of this ERG, existence, relatedness, and growth, as defined by Adolf. Now, one of the points where this hierarchy of needs, Maslow's needs, are criticized is that the requirements of the people, the needs of the people, do not form any kind of hierarchy. As proposed, that human wants are unlimited, one emerges as one is satisfied. This is also a questionable topic. Cannot I have my actualization needs fulfilled before my physiological needs? Certain debatable things are there with this concept. So, Alderfer proposed this existence, relatedness, and growth, which is almost same as Maslow's need priority model. Existence says your physiological and safety. Relatedness says your social, and growth needs says the esteem and actualization needs. So what was proposed as 5 such different hierarchies of this motivational ladder? ERG model proposed that there should be 3, and there should not be any kind of hierarchy. Right? There should not be any kind of hierarchy for this. Any need can dominate the behavior of the people at any point of time. We need to understand that particular scenario, the context, and we need to make an application of the same. Similarly, if I to talk of this Herzberg's two-factor theory, Herzberg come out with a basic concept. The opposite of satisfaction is not dissatisfaction, but no satisfaction. Similarly, opposite of dissatisfaction is not satisfaction, but to have no dissatisfaction. Means what? He come out with the concept of Heisenberg factors and motivators. Heisenberg factors are the factors which, if not provided to the workers, will lead them to have dissatisfaction. Right? That means what? If I have to talk of the workers in particular, If I don't pay them at a minimum level, if I don't pay them at a minimum level, so the workers will have dissatisfaction. But being at a minimum level, can I ensure that the workers will be satisfied? May not be. Maybe, may not. So, paying at a minimum rate whereby the worker will be at a subsistence level will remove that dissatisfaction. But it may not so happen that they will come out with a level of satisfaction. So, what can make the employees satisfied? What can make the workers satisfied at the place of work? Is the fulfillment of higher order needs. What do you call it as? Motivators. Okay? So when people or the requirements of lower order needs are not fulfilled, they will be dissatisfied. But if the lower order needs of the people are fulfilled, I cannot ensure that the workers will be motivated enough. No, they will remove their level of dissatisfaction, but to motivate them, but to ensure that the workers are motivated enough to perform their base, their higher order needs have to be taken into consideration, which will really motivate them. And lower order needs are the horizon factors, higher order needs are the motivators. Right? So when you do come out with the basic assumption of this two-factor theory, Hasbrouck's two-factor theory, we do say that understanding the people or driving the behavior of the people is the way we design our compensation plans. So it's a very important aspect of the organization that you need to take into consideration. Behavioral part. Anyhow, you need to maintain or you need to come out with the basic assumption of making the employees motivated to contribute their best. Expectancy theory is there as developed by Victor Book. What it says, three factors are important for the organizations. One is the valence, the second one is the expectancy, third one is the instrumentality. What is the valence? Valence is the personal value that the workers do place on the rewards. Now, what is important for me is my valence. What is important for me? What I do give a thrust on, whether this lower order needs money or recognition, promotions. What is that factor that makes the employees adding value to their own system is called as valence. Expectancy says what is the level of output I'm expecting, and to have that level of output, how much effort I'm going to give. So the relationship between the efforts and the performances are defined in terms of the expectancies. Right? So I'm working for 8 hours, what I'm going to get? If I'm contributing more value to the organization, so what I'm expecting from the organization? That's what we do say is expectancy. Instrumentality says it's a relationship between this performance and rewards. So efforts leads to performances, performances leads to rewards. Right? What level of performance will lead to what level of reward? That is what instrumentality is all about. Now, if I do talk of this expectancy theory, it says that motivation is a product of valence, expectancy, and instrumentality. If any one of these factors are missing, we will come out with No, some of these factors or one of these factors, even if is missing, the entire product will be zero. That means what? If I do have this balance or the value that I do have it on the reward system is not as per my expectations, is not to the level of the rewards what the organization is providing me. So shall I be motivated? Say if I'm a person who is driven by higher order needs, right? And the reward that you have given is a 3% hike in the pay package, may not motivate me. Rather, the things that I was telling you, like having a dinner with the boss, or being receiving some sort of rewards and recognitions as the employee of the month award, some awards, some recognitions, right, will definitely satisfy my expectations. Not that I'm motivated in terms of money. That's what we need to understand, right? So, what is the importance of that reward for me has to be taken into consideration. Each and every individual worker's balance has to be found out. Right? Or we can think of certain generic aspects of the thing. But again, we have to talk of the level of effort I'm giving and the level of outcome. Of course, this can be affected by many different factors which are related to the individual's himself, the individual's skill, individual's knowledge, individual's aptitude itself, ability. All of these things do make a contribution or do affect the relationship between these efforts to the performances. So, for example, with the level of expertise or with the level of expertise or experience, the job which I can complete it within 3 to 4 hours may take double or triple time for a newly joined employee in the organization. So that is what you need to understand, right? And whether the performances that I do come out with really providing me that reward, means do my compensation plan has got a pay for performance scheme. If these three things will be taken together, then definitely the workers will be motivated enough, right, to contribute towards the organization's goal. Okay? Then we do talk of equity theory is another one important theories that we do come out with, proposed by Stacey Adams, right? And what it says that all the individuals do contribute towards the organization, but in return of the contribution, they expect certain rewards, certain benefits, right? Now, always people make a comparison between the contributions they do make towards the organization and the rewards they do receive, whether that exchange is equitable or not, right? Whether that exchange is satisfactory or not. It's a general tendency of the individuals that they are not concerned for themselves, rather they are concerned for others in the workplace. What it says? We are always keen for others' salaries than our own. And that's a fact. That's a human behavior, right? So what it happens? Now people always compare their inputs to their outputs with others' inputs to the others' outputs. How much effort I'm giving, what is the reward I'm getting it for? How much effort the other person is giving, and what is the reward he's getting. And based on these comparisons, it will come out with two different kinds of possibilities. Whether that is, there will be equity. Equity means the effort that I'm giving and the amount I'm receiving as my compensation, the effort the other person is giving, and the amount that the other person is receiving is same, then there is equity. Like I was telling you in the previous class only, right? So there can be individual equity, there can be internal equity, there can be external equity. Right? So individual equity says two persons contributing in a similar way to the organization should be paid equally. Internal equity says jobs which have similarities should be paid equally. So discuss that hierarchies, and each and every hierarchy will have its own importance for the organization, right? So all of those things need to talk, but there may be external equity is also there. External equity says what the other organizations are paying, I must pay that much to the workers, right? Beyond that, we will talk of the concept of fairness also. Fairness is all the people who are contributing, they should be paid more than that of the normal salary structure or compensation structure, whatever it may be. But how can we really motivate the people? Sometimes we need to like take the help of this principle of equity, but in a different way, where we say that now there will be inequities if the ratio of the inputs to the outputs reverse, the ratio of efforts to contributions of myself to the other person will not match. There will be inequity. Means what? Inequities can be of two types. One is an overpayment inequity, one is underpayment inequity. The efforts I am giving and the rewards that I do get are more than that of the efforts the other person is giving and the reward that the other person is getting. Right? So that is called overpayment inequity. I am getting more in comparison to the efforts that I am putting forth. Underpayment inequity says I am getting less in comparison to my efforts to the rewards as compared to the other persons who are having the similar sort of duties and responsibilities. So any kind of inequities will create a tension among the workers. Will have a tension among the workers. And the human behavior is that we are always motivated enough to reduce the level of tensions that we do have. So sometimes when you create an overpayment inequity or an underpayment inequity, that will lead the workers or the employees to contribute more or less till they come to the equilibrium phase, to come to the state of that equity, right? So people in a process are motivated enough to contribute, right? So any kind of inequities will create tension, and it's the individual tendency of the people or the human resources to reduce that tension. So in a process, they are motivated, right, to contribute their best. So compensations are also been taken into consideration for determining the behavior. And Another one important theory that we to come out with is this attribution theory, theory of attribution, developed by Fritsch and Louis Fistinger, right? Uh, what it says, people always attribute the cause of their behavior either to themselves or to others. So, in a sense, either people attribute the cause of their behavior to themselves to others. So, what it happens? It's a human process that people attribute the cause of their success to themselves, failure to others. Right? But whenever we to talk of this compensation, you need to understand that people are always rational, logical, and they are affected by both these internal forces and external forces, or maybe combined additively to determine their behavior. So the process is if people do or they come out with their behavior in a way, these external or internal factors to define the level of compensation and practices. So these are the theories, economic theories and behavioral theories related to compensation that we have discussed it today. Right? And tomorrow we'll discuss the recent trends like international compensation. We'll discuss that and the trends that we need to talk of, we need to follow at the present time that defines the compensation practices. So let us end up over here, dear friends. Have a very good day to all of you. And once again, we'll join tomorrow at the same time, 1:30, for the continuation of the session. Thank you. Thank you very much.